Warning: the following episode contains descriptions of sexual assault, rape, kidnapping, and murder. Viewer discretion is advised. Hey guys, welcome back. This is the CMP podcast with me, Christina Plord. So, today, the story that we have is about Mary Vincent. Now, this story is honestly one of the most mind-blowing stories I've ever heard. I watched the I Survived episode that she was in, and it was unlike anything I've ever heard. Like, when I say this woman is amazing for what she went through, and how she fought, and the fact that she even had to fight and deal with this is so heartbreaking. But I feel like there's not a lot of stories where there's a ending that you're satisfied with when it comes to true crime and you really feel like justice was served. But it's definitely crazy. And I'm gonna be honest as well, this is the third time I tried to start recording. I had an issue with a computer, and then I had an issue with some clicking noise from GarageBand, and it's just been a lot. So now I'm excited to get right into the story. And today, my information is coming from chillingcrimes.com, LA Times from when she did an interview, and then also Ranker Times. Sorry about that. My dogs were barking. You know, it's sometimes I recommend doing what you love and really dedicating yourself to it. But then there's some days where it's like everything isn't lining up. And there was part of me that was like, you know what? No, I'm not going to record. I'm going to do it tomorrow. But then I was like, you know what? Nope. Do it. It's okay. Figure it out. So anyways, I hope you guys are staying safe and happy and healthy. And thank you for watching / listening. Not watching. This isn't a TV show. Because I think if it was a TV show, I'd be a lot more nervous because I don't like being on camera. But this I don't mind because it's just like a recording of myself. I will say though, it definitely took me a little to get used to hearing my voice when I was editing. That was weird. But I feel like I'll get used to it just as time goes on, you know. And if anyone has any suggestions on how I can make it better, please email me, christinaplord6@gmail.com. I'm sure eventually I'll probably have to make a new email for the podcast. But for right now, just email me there. Let me know your opinion. Let me know if there's a story you want to hear. Because I love reading about it. So, let's jump right in. So, let's start here. September 29th of 1978. Mary Vincent, at the time, was 15 years old, and she needed a ride because she had just left her parents' house, and she wanted to stay with her grandfather in Los Angeles. And in 1978, it was normal to hitchhike. I feel like a lot of our parents grew up during this time, and it was normal. I know with my parents, it was normal for them to just go out, and then everyone knew by like a certain time everyone had to go back to their house. Like, there wasn't really a lot of like helicopter parenting, they call it. They kind of just did what they want, and like everyone trusted that their kids were safe. They never really thought that anything would happen. So she had no money, and she hitchhiked along the freeway in the San Francisco Bay Area because she wanted to go to Los Angeles by Interstate 5. This is crazy to me, the fact that she did that, because I could never imagine doing that. And me and my boyfriend just went to California last summer before COVID and everything, and those highways are huge, and there are so many cars there. There are so many people just flying by. I could not imagine walking down the highway in Los Angeles. It's crazy. But honestly though, if anyone's ever considered going to Los Angeles, definitely go. It was probably one of my favorite vacations, probably my most favorite vacation ever. Me and Brennan really want to move there because it's gorgeous there, and I definitely recommend. But let's also keep prayers for California and Oregon and just the West Coast in general. They're dealing with a lot of fires right now. I'll be posting on my Instagram some links where you can donate to help victims of this. It's very sad what's going on, and it's very heartbreaking. But if you can help, either as simple as just resharing the post or even donating, I definitely appreciate it. Back to the story. So, there were 2 other people hitchhiking at the side of the road beside Mary, and a blue van stopped. But he had only room for one of them, and the hitchhikers that she was with told her to just wait for another ride, and they'll all go together. But Mary really wanted to go, and she wanted to get there. Like, she was tired, and she wanted to stop walking, and so she was like, no, I'm just gonna go, like, it's fine. And the man driving the van was 51-year-old Lawrence Singleton. Lawrence, was a merchant seaman, and he told Mary he would make a stop at his house in San Pablo and then head towards Interstate 5. So he was just basically like, hey, just need to do a little detour. I'll still bring you where you need to go, but I just need to stop at my house. It's on the way. After they left his house, Mary fell asleep in his van, and when she woke up, she realized that they had passed Interstate 5 and that they were heading towards Nevada instead. So obviously she woke up and she was like, hold on, like, you missed my stop, you didn't wake me up, like, what's going on here? And so when she said to him, like, hey, my stop was back there, like, you're going the wrong way, Lawrence was just like, oops, sorry, we'll turn around and we'll head back. And he did. And they returned to the junction and then proceeded south on Interstate 5. So they got back, so she was just like, oh, perfect, like, whatever, he just drove by, didn't know where he's going. She didn't think anything of it, right? This is where it gets good. So on the highway, like, let's rewind back to what I said before. On the highway, 7-lane highway in Los Angeles, Lawrence stops the van. He said, I need to use the restroom, and needs to relieve himself in, I assume, the woods. I don't think he'd be relieving himself between the barrier of the 2 sides of the highway, but you never know. And then Mary got out of the van as well because she wanted to stretch her legs. Like, whatever, like, you've been in the car for a while, especially in Los Angeles. I don't know how it was during then, but when we went, there's also a lot of traffic. And if someone's listening to this that's from California, you'd probably know that already because you live there. But anyways, so Mary bent down to tie her shoes because her shoes had gotten undone, and Lawrence punched her using his fist and a hammer on her head and back multiple times. So she had no idea this was about to happen. Didn't see it coming. Bent down, vulnerable, just doing her thing, and he just comes up behind her and just hits her multiple times. What? What? First of all, this is a 15-year-old girl, and you just, she didn't even see it coming. She didn't even know what was happening. Back to it. So, once he did that, he threw her into his van and tied her hands behind her back. He tore up her clothes, and he eventually started sexually assaulting her and raping her, which breaks my heart reading this because I can only, like, she's 15. I can only imagine the fear and, like, the worry if she was even awake at this point. Because I don't know how many times, it doesn't really say how many times he hit her, and, like, if he was, like, out and everything. But on Ranker, it does go into detail. It says that he struck her He dragged her to the back of her van, raped her. He told her not to scream or he'd kill her and to obey him if she wanted to live. I mean, based off what I'm reading, I think she was a lot, like, awake for all of this, because he then said after he did that, he bound her hands again, drove for a while, and then came to a stop, cut her hands, and told her to drink some unknown alcohol from a plastic jug. After that, she was repeatedly raped until she passed out, which is so sad and heartbreaking. I can't even imagine the fear that she was experiencing. I think at that point, it's like you try to survive by, in a way, like dissociating yourself from the situation. At least that's what I've seen in documentaries that I've watched where victims have talked, that they kind of try to, so that they can survive, they kind of like in their brain, like remove themselves from the situation just to think of like, okay, like this is happening, but like I need to get out of here, you know? So, and then he kept driving. He then stopped, raped her again, and sodomized her. She kept pleading with him to let her go, and she kept asking if he would set her free. And, I mean, obviously, he was like, no. Because once she gets free, she's 100% going to call the cops. And he obviously knew. I feel like there's a certain point, not even a certain point, it's just when they're committing a crime like this, I feel like there's very few times that we've heard of killers or people who kidnap people just letting them go, because they know that even if they let them go, they're going to run and obviously tell, which they should. You should be in prison. You're a monster. The fact you would do that to a human being. But, so that's why they don't want to do that. So that's why also people kind of, you've heard people get to the point where they're like, he's done so much, like, there's no way I'm gonna live through this, you know, like, I've seen his face, I know who he is, like, he's just gonna kill me, he or she. So when she woke up again after he had repeatedly raped her and she had drank this unknown alcohol, he was in the middle of dragging her 50 yards or so from the van, like off, like they were like parked on the highway, the van was, and then he like dragged her into where like the wood or like the yard area. He stopped, cut the ropes from her hands, and then, warning everyone now, it gets a little graphic, and I'm like reading it over and it's like, Arr! So he stopped, cut the ropes from her hands. He took a hatchet. I don't know if everyone knows what those is. That is, there will be a picture. And he chopped off her left hand and then her right hand while she's conscious. She's awake. And then it took him 5 swings to hack off her forearms. So that's from the elbow down. He chopped off her arms from the elbow down, and like right before, he said. He then shoved her, and she was naked and obviously bleeding at this point, like she just got her arms cut off, down into an embankment, like off the highway, so you couldn't see her like from the highway, you'd have to walk down. Stuffed her into a concrete pipe and told her, okay, now you're free. And then he just walked away. He just said, okay, bye. Because obviously, like, he thought that because of where he cut her arms off, like, you clearly cut an artery, like, it's gone. So he was just like, oh, she's gonna bleed to death anyways. Like, no one's ever gonna figure this out. You know? So she is in and out of consciousness at this point because she's losing so much blood. And at this point, he didn't think that there was any way that she could survive. There's no way. Like I said, like, you cut an artery. But then this is when it gets good. So, Mary, this badass who is naked, caked in her own blood, rolled her elbows in the dirt, like, where he cut, to stop the bleeding. Like, just packed it in. Like, you know how, like, when you're bleeding and, like, military medic and stuff, like, they always say to let you, like, shove something in there. And I'm pretty sure they have products, like, in the military that if they're in the war zone or whatever, they push it in. It's like a compact, and it kind of, like, clots everything up, I think. I don't know what that's called. Someone let me know. Forget what that's called. So she then mustered up the strength to stand up and not only walk 3 miles out of this ditch that she's in, but climb. She climbed the whole embankment, naked, with no arms. Excuse me? What? And at this point, she realized she was at the Del Puerto Canyon in California. She followed the sounds of the freeway to get back to like, the road, so that she can, like, flag someone down and stop someone, you know? And while she was doing this, she was holding her arms up in the air to stop the bleeding, because if you keep them down, then it's just gonna, like, come out. It's kind of like a nosebleed. Like, you know how a nosebleed, they always say, like, put your head back, and then it stops it from bleeding, and you're not supposed to, like, lean over, because then it just keeps going. It's like that. So yeah. Mind-blowing. She said, and I quote, "I did this so that the muscles and blood would not fall out." Honestly, I don't think I would have thought of that. I don't think I would have. Maybe. I don't know. I also feel like never been in that situation. You don't know what would happen. But she is smart. That is so smart. Because I probably wouldn't have thought of that. I would have been like, this is it. I still would have been at the bottom of the ravine. That's it. So she walked down the road hoping a car would pass, because where they were, and, like, where he dropped her, and then, like, where she climbed back up, it was like a dark road. Like, you could hear the interstate from the road that she was on, but it was like a road off of the interstate, so it was just pitch black. She was walking for hours. Then a red convertible drove down the road. And the people in the car saw Mary. And a couple places I saw was that it was 2 guys, 2 or 3 men who saw her, and they saw, like, they were the first car they saw her, and she was naked, covered in blood, and had what was left of her arms in the air. They could barely believe what they were seeing, and they drove off. They just left because they were so scared, which is, I can't believe someone did that. Not only can I not believe someone did that, but I can only imagine what she was feeling. Like, oh my God, like, I'm finally getting help. Like, here's a car. Like, she's like, finally, like, I'm in so much pain. I need to get to the hospital. I'm gonna live. And then they drive off. And also, how are you gonna do, like, obviously, like, it's scary because you just see, like, a naked girl in front of you with no arms. But, like, I would definitely, like, ask maybe, like, hey, are you okay? Like, people are, like, scared of, like, things that go bump in the night, so they thought it was, like, some, like, paranormal something, like, they couldn't believe, they were like, there's no way that's real, like, drive. But I wonder if they heard, like, this story, because it was, like, all over the news. So I wonder if they were like, wow, we probably should have stopped. Or if they don't know to this day. Like, if they feel bad, you know? I don't know. So then she watches him drive off, and she walked another 3 miles before she saw another car. So just to put in perspective, me and my boyfriend walk 3 miles every night on just the roads around our house. We just like to go on walks. And to walk 3 miles, it takes us about an hour and 15 minutes. So after watching this car drive off, she now walked another hour and 15 minutes. And that's if it's all flat road. I don't know if there's any hills, because then if there's hills and stuff, it might take you a little longer. And also it's dark. She can't see. She doesn't have a flashlight. She doesn't even have clothes on. And so I don't know. But yeah, if at least an hour and 15 minutes, now she has to continue walking, hoping that she sees someone. So this time, another couple stopped to help. They saw her, and they were on vacation. But not only were they on vacation, ladies and gentlemen, they were on their honeymoon. They had taken a wrong turn, and they were on their honeymoon. And they saw her. That's a story. That would definitely end a honeymoon. At that point, I'd be like, let's make sure this girl is good, and then I want to go home. So they saw her, stopped to help her, and they wrapped her in linens and blankets from their car before driving her to a nearby airport, it says. So it's from there that they called an ambulance, because there wasn't an ambulance. There was a hospital nearby. I don't know exactly. I mean, it must have been pretty for them to immediately go to an airport, but they knew that she needed to get somewhere that had some sort of medical thing, at least at an airport they probably have some sort of big medical kit, more than someone's gonna have in their car, to just help stop the bleeding. She was bleeding a lot. They need to do something fast. And all that she could say to the EMTs, which is so heartbreaking, is all she said was, "He raped me." That's all she said. Which is super sad, because that's heartbreaking. That's all she can say. She's in so much shock that she's just he raped me. What? But I don't know. It might not have been, because then I'm also thinking, maybe, because this girl's smart, maybe it wasn't, she only said he raped me because she was in shock, but she said that because she was he raped me, there's going to be DNA in there, do a rape kit, because then they'll be able to figure out who it is. And so she wants them to know, don't forget to do that, his DNA's there, I want to catch him, Maybe, I don't know. She spent a month in the hospital, but she was very, very determined to make sure Lawrence was found, which is another reason why I say that maybe that's why she was saying that, because she was he's not going to get away with this. We are going to find him. She gave police a very detailed description, which allowed for a sketch to be completed, and the sketch was then seen by Lawrence's neighbor, who then called the police. And shout out to that neighbor, because that neighbor, I feel especially now, people are always well, I'm just gonna mind my own business, but that's, yes, yep, you should do that. You should call the cops. Don't stay quiet. No. Like my favorite podcast says, my favorite murder, fuck politeness. Why am I going to be polite and be oh, I'm not going to say, no. If I see my neighbor's picture on television saying that he committed a heinous crime, I'm not going to not say anything. I'm going to say something. I'm going to call. I'm going to be dialing in 2 seconds to be hey, I know him. I know who this is. That's all I'm saying. Don't be silent. Don't do it. Say something. Like they said, see something, say something. Just like that. So during her recovery, specialists fit Mary with prosthetics, and she returned to school with her new prosthetics and her disability because they couldn't reattach. I don't know. I haven't seen anything, but I don't know if they found her arms. I think he might have, like, taken them. So, like, they can't attach them. And it had been so many hours. Because I also found a couple places, like, she was in and out of consciousness for, like, 12 hours. Like, she woke up, like, the next night. Like, it wasn't, like, right when he left, she, like, waited a little bit and then started walking. So, you know? And so, let's go back to here. So, they went to Lawrence's home in St. Pablo and searched the entire thing. Mary's cigarettes were found there and burnt clothing that appeared to be hers. So her shit was there. And they were like, we got him. Perfect. Amazing. But then this happens. Then Lawrence, the police figure out that Lawrence, with the help of another neighbor, I don't know if this is the neighbor that called or another neighbor, had already cleaned his van before police arrived. He removed the carpet and he had washed it and he had thoroughly cleaned the entire inside. But what I want to know is, was there blood inside that van? Because if there was, and your neighbor asked you to help you clean his van, and you walk over there and you look inside and you can clearly see red spots, why are you helping him? But if there was no blood, then that's different. Then he didn't realize. So, excuse the neighbor for that. But if you see dark red spots in a van and someone's like, can you help me clean this and throw away this rug and wash it? I would either ask some questions or get out of there. One of the two. Either ask some questions or get out of there and call the police. Because you don't know what that red stuff is. Maybe it's tomato sauce. And if it's tomato sauce, then oops, my bad. But it's better to say something than not say something. Because also, who knows? If there was red stuff and this person, what if Mary was not found? God forbid, what if she was dead? Still at the bottom of the ravine. And you call the cops and you're like, hey, there's some red stuff in this van. Like, my neighbor asked me to clean it, but, like, it's weird. And they come, they look at it, take the van, DNA test it. Mary Vincent. Maybe they've been looking for her. You know, you could help save someone. Do better. But, I mean, if there was no red stuff, then that's different. Because I don't know if there would be anything in there. It might have just been cleaning out her DNA. Like fingerprints. Maybe. So, Lawrence told police that he had picked up Mary and picked up two other male hitchhikers named Larry and Pedro. Lawrence said that they all stopped at a bar, smoked dope, and dope with quotations around as a quote, paid to have sex with Mary, and then he said that he just, passed out after that, and Larry drove the van to San Francisco. He said that he woke up, saw her clothing in the van, Mary was gone, and had no idea what they were talking about. Convenient, because now, who's Larry and Pedro? Where are they? What are their names? You don't know, because you're making it up. You're lying. So honestly, kudos to the detective that was like, yeah, no, that's not gonna fly. So he kept saying, like, I didn't do anything. And he called her a $10 a night whore. That's what he called Mary. This 15-year-old girl. First of all, you are, 51 years old? Is that what it was? Yeah, 51. 51 years old. And you're picking up a 15-year-old and having sex with her? What? Excuse me? No excuse. No excuse. You are a pedophile. That's disgusting. Even if she said that she wanted to. You're a pedophile. Women are allowed to do whatever they want with their bodies. So don't call her a whore. And second of all, don't make up something either just to make yourself feel better about it. Okay? Making yourself feel better about being a creep, a pedophile, a killer, a potential killer. Because, joke's on you, buddy. She lived. You weren't planning on that now, were you? No, I didn't think so. Huh. Despite everything he was saying about her. Now this, once again, a queen. A queen. This is what this girl is. She stood up in front of the court, and the prosthetics that she had were like the prosthetics with the hook at the top. Like it wasn't like a hand, it was just like a hook. And pointed one of the hooked prosthetic arms at him. And only refers to him as my attacker. Never his name. Never his name. And declared in a very firm voice that he did this to her. And then, let's get to some other stuff, which is gonna boil my blood. So, she testifies, right? The details of all of this horrific assault. About the raping, the drinking of the alcohol, the cutting her hands and then her forearms off, having to pull herself out of a ravine and then walk miles until someone finds her. All because he wanted to do this to her, right? In anyone's head, you would be like, he is going to jail forever. Going to jail forever. And then on top of this, after she's done giving her testimony, she's going back to her seat in the courtroom. She has to walk by, we've all seen some courtrooms. When you get off the witness stand, you have to walk by the prosecution on one side, the defendant on the other, and you walk straight through to the benches. And he spoke directly to her and said, "I'll finish this job if it takes the rest of my life." In court, he says this. On the record. For everyone to hear. Jury and all. Everyone. So the jury comes back. They find him guilty. Thank God. He was convicted of kidnapping, mayhem, attempted murder, forcible rape, sodomy, and forced oral copulation. He received the maximum sentence possible. But at the time, judges could not impose consecutive sentences for each felony. Why? I don't know. Don't know why. That's ridiculous. And as a result, the most that this man could get in prison, just listen to this, 51 years old, right? 14 years and 4 months. That's it. Excuse me? 14 years. 14 years. What kind of sick joke is that? What kind of slap in the face is that? 14 years. She's 15 at this time, right? She's not even going to be 30 when this man gets out of jail. Mind-blowing. Mind-blowing. But I will say, the judge wanted him to spend the rest of his life in prison, but due to the laws that were in place at the time, he couldn't. What? And this is it's just like boils my blood because it just shows the such unfairness of our judicial systems sometimes, even in the past. Like, he literally chopped off her arms, raped her, kidnapped her, and chopped off her arms. And he gets 14 years. That's it. He did it because he wanted to kill her. That's why he put her there. He wanted to kill her. Why is he not being sentenced to jail? Like, why is it that if you have an attempted murder charge, you cannot go to jail for the same amount of time as a murder charge. Like, your plan was for this person to die, and they didn't. That's someone's watching over them, whatever they may be, whatever they believe in, whoever. Something happened that they survived, which is not what you planned on happening, and that's why you got caught. You should go to jail for the same amount of time as a murderer was, because you had the intent of murdering them. I don't understand it. Anyways. So. Super sad. It says that at home, she was having trouble with her family, and she felt like super isolated. Like, she was having a hard time dealing with everything, because she was also super terrified of this guy getting out of jail and, like, coming back and killing her. Because, I mean, he did say in court, I'll finish this job if it takes me the rest of my life, and he gets out in 14 years. So she's and then also at that point, like, you're also terrified of meeting any strangers. I'm sure in some way it kind of ruins your faith in, like, humanity and, like, nice people, because then, like, you kind of think to yourself, like, oh, is everyone bad like this, you know? She moved away as soon as she graduated, and she became very secretive about her life and where she was living and what she was doing. She was traumatized and depressed, and she ended up developing an eating disorder and becoming anorexic. She had a lot of trouble leaving the house. Like, she would rather just stay home. And she saw a lot of her close relationships fall apart, and ended up living in fear for years, and just kind of, like, very, like, lonely in a way. But I think in some way, like, she wanted to be left alone because she didn't feel safe going out, and people, like, your friends, like, your family, they want to invite you out, they want you to come visit them too, and, like, you're not leaving the house. Like, I don't know exactly how bad it was. I don't know her personally, obviously, but that's super sad. She got married and had 2 sons, and she found it very hard to leave the house for just routine things, and impossible to keep a job because she didn't like leaving the house. Like, your house is like your safe place, and I'm sure she had a lot of security of some sorts that made her feel super safe there that she didn't have in other locations, like work, grocery store, post office, places like that. So it was hard for her to just leave the house. She said in a quote from the LA Times, it says, "He destroyed everything about me, my way of thinking, my way of life, holding on to innocence, and I'm still doing everything I can to hold on." And I've also read that before all this happened, she had a very big dream of being a lead dancer at the Lido de Paris in Las Vegas. From what people said in interviews and what she said, she was super talented, and talented enough to have made it eventually, like, as she got older. But because of what happened, they had to take parts of her leg to save her right arm, and after that she couldn't dance anymore, which is super upsetting, because it just goes back to her quote of how he destroyed everything. Like, he crushed a dream that she had and had been working towards, and at 15 you don't ever think in your head that there's gonna be a reason that you're gonna lose that dream. Like, it's gonna happen. Like, that's what you want to do with your life. And especially when, I mean, I'm sure for her to know this, I'm sure at that time, like, there was people around her who were saying to her, like, you can do this, like, you're gonna get there, like, you're very talented. And then for the doctors to be like, you can't dance anymore, I'm sure that was crushing, because that's her dream. Like, I could never imagine that. After his sentence, Lawrence spent the next few years in prison working and helping, and due to good behavior, they say, he won parole. What? I'm mind blown. The public expressed a very massive outrage against this leniency because his the case itself was just such like a high publicity case, especially in the town that they lived, and especially where she lived. So everyone knew about it, and so it was just one of those that was like they announced when he was getting released. And also he still, when he got out, unremorseful, still claimed he was innocent and never raped or dismembered her. Wasn't me, he said. Still wasn't me. Whatever. And so on Ranker it says that he only served 8 years and 4 months. And then on Chilling Crimes it says that he served just 7 years and 9 months. So I mean, between 7 and 8 years he served when he was originally sentenced to 14 years. Isn't that great? Isn't that amazing? That's it. That's it. This girl's in her mid-20s at that point. Mid-20s, that's it. And this happened when she was 15. Mind-blowing. Mind-blowing. Town after town in California basically said to Lawrence, no, you're not allowed to live here. And he ended up moving to Orient Park in Florida. He had registered with state attorneys as a convicted felon, but local law enforcement did not have to notify his new neighbors of his past, which is ridiculous. I personally, like, a crime that severe, you should be telling people when that person moves in next door to them. They have the right to know who they're living next door to if they committed a crime that big. Like, I'm not saying if you go to jail because you got pulled over for having a gram of weed in your car. Like, no. I don't need to know that. Like, whatever. But if you tried to dismember and kill a 15-year-old girl, I think your neighbors need to be notified. What? Do better. Again, do better. Ridiculous. So, nobody in the area knew who he was, obviously, but this all changed on February 19th of 1997, same year I was born. A house painter was painting a house nearby and happened to look into the window of his home, Lawrence's home. He saw a horrific scene, it says, and immediately called the police. There was a naked man, he said, covered in blood, repeatedly stabbing a naked woman, and the woman appeared to be unconscious on the sofa. He said that he could hear bones being crushed after each stab. What? This is what happens when you only convict someone and sentence them to jail for 14 years. The judge even said he should have been in jail for the rest of his life. There should have been some way that judge could have gone to someone high up, I don't know who, in the judicial department, that would be like, you know what, we're going to make an exception for this case because this is a bad egg, a very bad one. No, he's not going to be walking around in society. He lost that privilege when he did this to a 15-year-old. That's just what I think. So then, police arrived at the house and discovered the naked man, who was Lawrence Singleton, and the woman was a 31-year-old named Roxanne Hayes. She was a mother of 3 and a sex worker, and she had agreed to meet Lawrence for $20 at his home. What? Like, mind-blowing. So, Lawrence then claims that they struggled because she tried to take more money than was agreed upon, and he didn't mean for her to die. I'm sorry, but the painter said that you were stabbing her multiple times, and if say in some world she's trying to, if she asked for more money, there is no reason you should be stabbing her. I mean, doing anything to her. You can have a conversation like a civilized human. But if she's trying to steal from you, understand being upset about that. No one wants to be stolen from. But there's other ways to go about it. You can be like, hey, don't steal my money. We can talk about this. Or kindly ask them to leave, not stab them to death multiple times. You meant for her to die. That's 100% meaning for someone to die. What? It's like he thinks people are stupid. I really do think that. Like, he's like narcissistic and thinks he's the smartest person in the room, and he's like, oh, I didn't mean for her to die. Like, what? It just, happened. Nope, that's not how that happens. You have the mindset and you go in wanting to do that. What? I've never gotten into a fight with someone and been like, yeah, I'm gonna stab. Like, no, that's not what a normal human being does. That's not what, you should not be doing that to someone. Over $20? Really? Really? Do better. Anyways, so then Mary comes back and she testifies against him again. And the best part is she came back to testify him again, right? But when Singleton got out of prison, he felt he was a victim in the attack against Mary and decided to sue her. He claimed that he considered the alleged events and knew he was considered them. What do you mean you considered the events and knew that you weren't guilty? Like, you were like, well, given what happened, no, I didn't do it. That's not what what? No. Upsets me. He said he remembered Mary threatening to accuse him of rape and that she brandished a stick at him. What? So he decided this was the reason he had become violent, maintaining mistreatment from the courts, and filed a complaint suing Vincent, Mary, for forcible kidnap for the purposes of robbery. He feigned sympathy for Vincent, claiming he almost vomited 3 times and could not sleep for several nights after filing. This suit never gained traction and the courts dismissed it. Huh, look at that. He tried it. And the courts were like, do you think we're stupid? Let's read that again. Forcible kidnap for the purposes of robbery. So you're saying, this is what I imagine them saying to him. So you're telling me that a 15-year-old girl told you, give me your money or whatever, or I'm going to tell people you raped me, and then picked up a stick. What? And that what she said forced you to kidnap her and cut off her arms, because that's the only logical thing to do, right? Get out of here. That's what I would have said. 100%. And so, back to what happened with the woman. Roxanne kills her in Florida, right? Mary, they're like, can you testify against him again? We're putting him away this time. Which, Roxanne's murder should have never happened. Nope, shouldn't have happened. That happened because he was able to get out. So Mary comes and she's like, yep, I'm going to testify. I got this. We're putting him away. Perfect. She's been living in fear this entire time. And then his own daughter, Deborah, came in and was like, I'm scared of my dad. I want to testify too. What? His own daughter was like, you know what? We need to put him away. Huh. What? And Deborah said that she found out he was getting out of jail for the first time for what he did to Mary, and she ran away and hid as well, asking law enforcement if there was any way they could keep him behind bars for longer. That also gives the courts an insight, I believe, into the kind of man he was. If his own daughter was like, I don't want to be around him, please keep him there. I don't want him to come looking for me. And that she's scared of her dad. Because of the kind of person he is. Because, yeah, he did this married, but you don't know what his home life was. He lived with Deborah. Deborah lived with him. She knows how he was to his core. That should show you as well. Considering how he had used his status as a father to marry, because there was also part of it that said that one of the ways that he got her in the car was just saying, like, talking about his daughter, and like, you know, like, to make him seem less scary, I guess, because then people are like, oh, like, you have kids too, like, you wouldn't do anything to me, like, you understand, versus like a guy who doesn't have kids. Maybe that's how she felt. I don't know. But I also think that's messed up. And we've seen multiple killers and attempted killers that have used their status as a father, or like no one thought it was them because they had kids. Like the BTK killer, his daughter did a whole documentary. And like I said in the last episode, and I don't think anyone, I feel like just killers in general, we still in a way have this thought of like, it's like the monster hiding under the bed, but they can also be completely normal people. Like, they're not going to be like a transient that lives in a creepy house up on the hill. Like, they could be your next door neighbor and you would have no idea, which is crazy to me that you really could have no idea who you're talking to. Pretty sure there's like a statistic that says you walk by like 4 serial killers in your lifetime or something like that, and that's terrifying. So in her own words, Deborah said, I asked California prison personnel what could be done to keep him in longer, and I was told there was nothing. They suggested I obtain a restraining order at the time of his release. Sorry, but I mean this quite sarcastically. I tell you, he is a danger. I said that before the first crime. I've changed my name multiple times and am moving across state lines, and you all suggest a piece of paper that will tell him exactly where I am, what my name is, and not to come within, say, 300 feet of me. Which, yes, girl. Yes, because her concerns are completely valid. Because apparently, her father was committing crimes. I don't know what those meant. They didn't really go in detail. Before the first incident with Mary and after he got out. I mean, as we saw with Roxanne, but even not including Roxanne. So, I mean, why would she get a restraining order that has her address, her new name, everything on it, so he can find her? What? No, that doesn't help. Do better. Anyways. So, he kills Roxanne. Mary testifies so that Roxanne could get justice. Like, she's hearing about this and she's like, no, like, I'm gonna help. Like, she should not be going through this, you know? So Mary told the jury great detail again about what happened to her, piece by piece. And she said, and I quote, I was raped. I had my arms cut off. He used a hatchet. He left me to die. Which is, yeah, tell him. Like, really, like, if we have to go over this again, we're going to go over this again, because he needs to be locked away, because he's going to do this again. It shouldn't have happened for a second time. Shouldn't have. But it happened. And now we need to get Roxanne justice and Mary justice, because I don't think Mary got justice in the first step. Her attacker got let out in between 7 and 8 years. When she's in her mid-20s, and now she has to live in fear for the rest of his life after, in the court, on record, he said he was going to finish the job. That's not justice. Justice would have been locking him away the first time and throwing away the key and leaving him there. That's what I think. And so then, this case, it took the jury 4 hours to reach a verdict. 4 hours. 4 hours. That's half a shift at work. So quick. He was found guilty and given a death sentence. But after this happened, after he was sentenced to death, she was prepared to not allow him to take another life and take what he had from her, like her dream of dancing, her livelihood. Like, she couldn't leave the house. She wasn't enjoying life. She wasn't happy. She was terrified, rightfully so. I would have been so scared to leave the house. That's so traumatizing. And then especially knowing he's out in the world, I wouldn't want to leave my house. I would bunker down in my basement, and I'd have like Stop and Shop drop off my groceries, and that's about it. I wouldn't see anyone. Because he wouldn't have been able to get out the first time if it wasn't for the laws that were in place, and then Roxanne would have still been alive. So then Mary felt like it was her duty to testify for Roxanne so that she could get some justice that she didn't get in the first time, which is really sad. Super sad. So then Mary ended up painting, drawing, sketching, trying to find some sort of outlet, I think, and I definitely recommend doing that, whether you've been through a traumatizing experience or not. Like, just finding something you're passionate about and doing something that you love, and really just taking advantage and putting yourself as a priority in life, because in order to be the best, because I know, like, we all have roles: mother, daughter, father, son, cousin, anything, brother, father, mother, whatever it may be. But in order for you to be the best at those, and you care about other people, you have to be the best version of yourself, which I truly believe, and I've definitely tried to work on that myself this year. You need to be the best version of yourself to be the best version of yourself for not only yourself, but for other people too. Because if you can't be happy and healthy and safe in this life, like, to the best of your ability, how do you expect to do that with someone else, you know? But with art, it gave Mary a new direction for life, and some of her work is now valued at $2,000 or more a piece. She's happy that she has moved on from the past of what happened, because she was Mary Vincent, the girl who was attacked and got her arms cut off, like, but then she kind of, like, in a way, like, disappeared from the public eye and just really tried to focus on herself more and make herself happy and not have this, like, looming over her, you know? And, like, because you don't want to, if you keep, like, giving interviews, like, doing books, whatever, like, obviously people are still going to talk about it, but, like, from the vibe I get here, she didn't really want people to talk about it anymore. Like, she kind of moved past that, so she just focused on something else, which was art instead. She said that most people know me because of who I am, not just what happened to me. They just assume I was born this way. So, I mean, that's good. And then as of December 28th, 2001, Lawrence Singleton who was awaiting execution, died of cancer. And that is the story of Mary Vincent. Mind-blowing story. Tell me what you guys think about it. Email me, comment on the Instagram, tweet me, whatever it may be, because this story is wild. Absolutely wild. And I think it also showcases, in a way, some of the discrepancies we have in our criminal justice system, not only now, but also before, and not only before, but now as well, as we've been seeing in the news a lot lately, too, when it comes to racism in this justice system as well. But we need to protect people better. They aren't protected the way they should. There should have been no reason he was able to get out after 7 or 8 years in jail after attacking a 15-year-old. That just should have never happened. That was just someone just dropped the ball on that. Like, and if that didn't happen, Roxanne probably still would be alive right now and never would have happened to her. And maybe Mary would have been able to live her life sooner in a way with what happened, because I'm not for sure, but maybe because he only got sentenced to 14 years and then said that to her in the courtroom, like, just the looming timeline above her head of, like, he's gonna get out, like, he's gonna come for me, was, like, there. And it's scary, I definitely recommend watching the I Survived episode with her, because she's a very, like, it's just an amazing story. She's a very strong woman, very, like, yes, like, woman power, like, it's heartbreaking what happened to her, and I wish it never happened to her. Like, my prayers are always with her, because I can only imagine, like, living with that. But I definitely think it's a great story of, like, being strong. It's in a way, a more refreshing story when it comes to true crime, because there is a lot of death around true crime as well, and sadness. And I think in a way this one kind of ended with justice for her, and he got what he deserved, kind of. Granted, I still don't think he should have gone out the first time, and it's heartbreaking that another woman had to die in order for him to get put away, but I think it's more of a refreshing one, and it's impressive, the fact that she was able to do all of that. So yeah, so let me know what you think. Let me know if there's any stories that you guys want to hear, and if there's anything you'd like to see different or whatever. Let me know what you think about this story. Definitely recommend watching the I Survived episode, and I'll talk to you guys in the next one. Bye, guys.